I went on a road trip through the Appalachian Mountains a few weeks ago. I thought it would be a fun adventure for my freelance writing. I was excited to explore small towns and quirky places, but everything changed when I drove down those winding roads. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the trees. I saw old gas stations, creaky diners, and worn cabins that looked like they had stories to tell. At first, it felt normal, but that feeling faded quickly. On my second night, I stayed in a rustic cabin. It was peaceful at first, but then I heard a tapping sound. I woke up suddenly. The room was dark. I thought it might just be branches against the window. Still, I looked outside and saw a figure standing at the edge of the trees. I couldn't see his face. My heart raced. I turned away, hoping it was nothing. The next day, I visited several towns looking for stories. I met an older man sitting on the diner's porch. I asked about anything strange happening around there. He looked me over before saying, "You might not want to know." I felt a chill. The locals seemed too reluctant to share their tales. I drove to a nearby forest. There was a hollow tree covered in carvings. They looked like faces, and I couldn't shake the feeling they were watching me. As night approached, I saw those same faces lurking in the shadows. They shifted whenever I looked. I tried to tell myself it was fatigue, but something felt very wrong. That night, the tapping came back. It was louder now. I pulled the blankets over my head, telling myself it was just the wind. My heart pounded. Then I heard a whisper. "Mark." It came from right outside the window. I froze. I finally mustered the courage to look again. The figure was closer. I couldn't see his features, but he was there. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Then he pointed. I glanced away for just a moment, and when I looked back, he was gone. I was all alone in the cabin, but I felt a certainty that I was not welcome. When dawn broke, I hurriedly packed my things. The residents I spoke to earlier seemed cautious and distant now. I left with my heart racing. I couldn't shake what happened. What were they hiding? As I got in my car, I heard a voice again. "Why don't you stay?" I turned around, but nobody was there. I felt uneasy driving away, knowing I might have stumbled into something I didn't understand. The Appalachian Mountains had offered me stories, but instead, they gave me shadows and whispers. I wondered if I would ever escape their pull. My trip turned into a haunting memory, one I would never forget. I didn't want to linger on those thoughts. The road stretched ahead of me like an endless ribbon, and I needed to keep moving. I thought of heading back home, away from this chilling place, but my curiosity kept me going. I drove into a small town called Ravenswood, hoping it looked friendlier. It was quaint, with white picket fences and blooming flowers. I parked in front of a bookstore that seemed inviting. As I stepped inside, the bell above the door jingled softly. The musty smell of old books wrapped around me. An old woman sat behind the counter. Her eyes met mine, sharp and discerning. "Looking for something?" she asked, her voice smooth like honey. "Just browsing," I replied, trying to ignore the unease from last night. I picked up a book about local folklore, hoping to find something to ease my troubled mind. As I flipped through the pages, I caught snippets of unusual tales, spirits in the woods, mysterious disappearances, and a warning about the forest near my cabin. "Be careful of the trees," the woman said suddenly, startling me. "They have ears and eyes. Some stories should stay buried." I hesitated, my grip tightening on the book. I decided to ask her about my experience. "I saw something in the woods last night. A figure. It felt strange." She turned pale, eyes widening. "You saw him?" Her tone suggested my experience was more than a mere sighting. "Who?" I asked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "The one who wanders," she whispered. He's tied to the forest. Many who see him don't return as they were. I wasn't sure what to make of that. I felt a surge of panic. What do you mean? She leaned closer. Trust your instincts. If you feel him watching, don't ignore it. It means he's chosen you. A chill ran down my spine. I didn't want to entertain the idea that I was part of a dark story. I needed to escape this town, but the question nagged at me, chosen for what? I thanked the woman and left the store, the bell chiming overhead like a warning. I walked back to my car, but as I turned the corner, something caught my eye. A group of children played on the edge of the woods, and they all stopped to stare at me. Their faces were blank, as if they were waiting for something. Stay away from the trees. One yelled, pointing wildly. I felt their unified gaze sharpen. Then I heard the whisper again, clearer this time. Mark, it resonated from the woods, beckoning and taunting me. I took a step back, my heart racing. The memories of the last few nights crashed over me like a wave. I wanted out. I started to turn, but something in the trees shifted. That's when I saw it. A branch moving as if pushed by an unseen hand. I ran to my car, breathless, desperate to drive away. I threw it in reverse, my hands shaking. As I sped down the road, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. I hadn't just encountered odd tales, I was tangled in a web of shadows that refused to let me go. I had escaped Ravenswood, or so I thought. The road ahead twisted through dense layers of trees, their shadows reaching across the pavement like long fingers. I felt like I was being followed, even though nothing was behind me. Just the road, winding further into the unknown. I needed a plan. My initial thought of seeking help felt naive. The locals didn't seem to grasp the dangers of the woods, they merely whispered their stories while casting suspicious glances. I decided my best bet was to find a place to stay the night and gather my thoughts. An old motel appeared up ahead. Its neon sign flickered dimly, but it was better than nothing. I parked and stepped inside the small lobby, the air stale with neglect. The clerk, a man in a worn cap, barely acknowledged me. I managed to get a room for the night but noticed his eyes darting to the window, as if he expected something or someone. Once inside, I locked the door and leaned against it, trying to calm my racing heart. I turned on the television, hoping for distraction, but all I got was static. I switched it off in frustration and sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the winds outside howling through the trees. Then I remembered the book I had picked up in the store. I fished it out of my bag and began to flip through the pages again, searching for answers. There had to be some significance to what I experienced. I found the section about the figure, the woodwalker. The tale spoke of his dark presence and the haunting calls that led many to madness or worse. As I read, a chill crept into the room. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. I paused and listened. There it was again, the whisper. Soft at first, then clearer, swirling in the air like smoke. Mark. I shot up, heart pounding. The sound was undeniably coming from outside my door. I pressed my ear against the wood, desperate to understand. Silence hung in the air like a weight. Suddenly, I heard a faint tapping, like a finger drumming against the paneling. My breath hitched. I fought the urge to open the door but couldn't help myself. I needed to know. With trembling hands, I turned the knob and opened it a crack. I peered out, half expecting to see nothing. But what I saw nearly made me scream. A child stood there, just outside my room. It was one of the kids from the woods, his face expressionless as he stared up at me. "He's waiting," he said, and then he turned, walking back toward the trees behind the motel. I felt panic rise. I slammed the door shut behind me and locked it again. My thoughts raced. Why was this happening? Was there a way to escape this nightmare? I could hardly breathe. That was when I noticed my phone. It was buzzing, an alert flashing on the screen. I picked it up, trembling as I opened the notification. It was an emergency alert: dangerous individual spotted in the forest. Do not approach. My blood ran cold. I had just taken off down a dark road I thought was safe. But now I knew that something was hunting me from the woods. And it was only a matter of time before it found me. I took a step back, realizing that I wasn't just being watched, I was being hunted. I couldn't shake off the child's words. He's waiting. What did that even mean? My mind raced, piecing together snippets of the tales from the book, the whispers, and the ominous energy that seemed to seep from the trees surrounding the motel. I was trapped, but I still had to think. I glanced at my phone. No signal, of course. I kicked myself for not checking earlier. I needed to leave, find a safer spot, maybe even head back into town. But what if whatever was hunting me was out there too? The idea sent chills racing down my spine. Outside, the wind howled like a living thing, making the trees sway and creak. I hesitated, wrestling with my fear and my need to escape. Just then, my gaze drifted toward the window. The thin curtains fluttered, and I caught a glimpse of movement. Cautiously, I approached the window and peered out. The street lamp barely illuminated the area, but I could see shadows flitting between the trees, more than one, moving unnaturally. I stumbled back, my heart racing again. This time I didn't dare open the door. Then everything went eerily quiet. The world outside felt as if it was holding its breath. I sat on the bed, forcing myself to breathe steadily. It could just be my imagination, right? But the sense of dread kept creeping further in. I decided to go back to the book. Maybe it had more information on the woodwalker, something I missed. I flipped through the pages, my eyes scanning for any shred of comfort. But as I read, I found myself devouring the worst pieces: the accounts of those who ventured too close to the figure and disappeared without a trace. Then, as if summoned by my thoughts, I heard something outside again, a soft thud, like a body hitting the ground. My heart raced as I walked back to the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. I couldn't see anything clearly, but shadows seemed to gather closer, crouching. That was when I saw it, a darker mass moving against the backdrop of trees, almost blending into the night. My stomach churned as I realized it was not any animal. It was a figure, tall and impossibly thin. The woodwalker? I stumbled back from the window, hands shaking. I had to get out now. But then I remembered the emergency alert on my phone. What if there was still a chance to reach someone? I rushed to the bathroom, thinking it might offer a better signal. Just as I stepped inside and lifted the phone once more, a loud bang echoed through the room. The door rattled on its hinges as if someone was trying to push it open. I spun around, heart pounding in my ears. Someone or something was indeed in the motel. And it was coming for me. Would I even be able to escape this nightmare, or was I destined to join whatever horrors awaited me in the woods? I pressed my back against the bathroom door, heart thudding in my chest. The banging continued, louder this time, as if whatever was outside was losing patience. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I had to do something. My eyes darted around the small room, searching for an escape. The window. It was small, but it might be my only chance. I turned slowly, every creak in the floorboard echoing like a warning. The noise outside stopped suddenly, as if sensing my intention. I moved to the window, forcing it open with a struggle. The sound of rusted hinges screeching made me flinch. I leaned out, glancing down. The ground was just a few feet below, a drop I could handle. But the fading light made shadows dance, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching from below. Then I heard it again, footsteps, soft and deliberate. Whatever it was circling the motel. My heart raced. I hoisted myself up, praying I wouldn't make a sound. Just as I swung my legs out, I heard the door to the bathroom creak open behind me. Panic flooded my veins. I dropped down from the ledge, landing silently on the ground. I looked back up at the window, moments from being discovered. There was no time to hesitate, I had to move. I sprinted into the trees, grateful for their cover. Branches scratched my arms as I ran, and the underbrush tugged at my feet. Each breath was heavy, filled with a mix of adrenaline and fear. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to get as far away from that motel as possible. I could feel the presence behind me, a chilling weight that made every instinct scream to run faster. Then I remembered the tales in the book. The woodwalker wasn't just a figure in the shadows. It was known to manipulate the forest, leading lost souls further into its depths. I had to stay focused, I couldn't allow it to trick me. Suddenly, I heard voices. Not far away, but close enough to lock my knees with fear. They were low and raspy, speaking in a language I didn't understand, echoing through the trees. I crouched behind a thick trunk, desperate to remain hidden. As I strained to listen, I caught snatches of the words. Waiting, come closer, and something like a sacrifice. There was no doubt now, I was caught in something much bigger than I imagined. I had to find a way out, but the direction didn't seem clear. I took a deep breath, peering carefully around the tree. The shadows moved again, but this time, I couldn't see what was causing them. My heart thumped wildly. I knew I had to make a decision. Stand and fight whatever this was, or find a different path to safety. The voices grew louder, the wind picking up around me, carrying whispers of the forest. It felt like they wrapped around me, trying to pull me back. Just then, a cold gust swept through, carrying a bitter chill that felt almost alive. I saw something flicker just beyond the tree line, two pale eyes glowing in the dark. It was watching me. I froze, heart hammering. That was when I realized the woodwalker wasn't just a myth. It was real, and it was here. I squinted into the darkness, trying to make sense of the glowing eyes. They didn't blink, didn't shift. They just stared back at me, unblinking and hungry. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. The rustling of leaves broke the tense silence, and I turned my head slightly, just enough to see what else lurked in the shadows. My stomach dropped as I noticed more shapes moving among the trees, figures with elongated limbs and unnatural postures. They drifted closer, drawn by the low, humming voices that sang through the night air. I couldn't let them see me. I dropped lower, pressing myself against the cold, damp earth. My breathing turned shallow as I fought the urge to panic. I needed a plan, any plan. Maybe if I could find a way to distract them, I could escape. But every idea that crossed my mind felt useless against the growing menace. Suddenly, a sharp snap echoed nearby, like a twig breaking underfoot, and all the figures in the shadows turned toward the sound. One of them, the one with the glowing eyes, took a step closer, its form becoming clearer. It was taller than any human, with a twisted face that was more bark than flesh. A deep guttural noise escaped its throat, a warning or a summons, I couldn't tell. Every instinct urged me to bolt, but where would I go? The words I had overheard felt more real now, come closer. I could sense their hunger for something, perhaps for me. My heart pounded a warning, the chill in the air tightening around me. I shuffled backward, careful not to make a sound. Just then, a shimmering light appeared to my right, flickering like a will-o'-the-wisp. Curiosity eclipsed my fear for a moment. I caught sight of what looked like a long-forgotten path, barely visible under the underbrush. The light beckoned me, casting ghostly shapes on the trees. Time to decide, I whispered to myself. Did I follow the light, or stay hidden in the shadows? I shifted again, scanning the area to ensure I wasn't being watched. The figures had returned their attention to their council, murmuring in low voices. With a deep breath, I made my choice. I would take the path. I had to trust my instincts, anything was better than being discovered. I realized the light didn't promise safety, but it felt like the only chance I had. As I crept forward, the light grew brighter, illuminating a small clearing. It danced among the trees, creating a rhythm that almost felt alive. I reached the edge of the clearing, and just as I was about to step into the light, the humming ceased. In the hushed silence that followed, a quick chill surged through me. Now, I thought. I rushed into the clearing, but everything was not as it seemed. That's when I saw it. At the center of the light stood an altar, intricately carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Shadows moved around it, unearthly shapes, and in the middle of the structure was a figure bound by ropes, writhing in desperation. I froze, heart racing again. I wasn't just running from something, I was running into it. My mind raced as I took in the sight before me. The bound figure at the altar was no ordinary person, its features were distorted, as if they were caught between worlds. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing in the silence, urging me to turn back. But there was something about the figure's eyes, a wild desperation that spoke to me, that begged for help. The shadows surrounding the altar shifted again, circling like wolves. The figures whispered among themselves, their voices a mix of low growls and soft coos that sent chills down my spine. I felt a pull, a strange connection to the altar and the figure. But I didn't know if I was drawn to it out of compassion or sheer morbid curiosity. I had to make a choice. The dry twine that bound the figure looked frayed, and I felt a sudden urge to free it. But the figures noticed my movement, their heads snapping in my direction. Panic washed over me. I was no longer hidden, and I could see the glowing eyes widening with interest. They had found me. Run! A voice echoed in my head, though I couldn't tell if it was my own or the figure's. I stumbled backward, nearly losing my footing. My instinct was to flee, yet I hesitated. What if freeing the figure meant saving someone trapped in this nightmare? Before I could decide, one of the shadowy figures lunged forward, gliding toward the altar with a speed that defied logic. My heart raced as it reached for me with long, spindly fingers. I turned and sprinted back toward the tree line, branches whipping against my face as I lost my way in the darkness. The rustling grew louder behind me as the figures followed, their whispers morphing into a cacophony. I could hear their guttural chanting now, a chorus that echoed in the night, urging me to stop, to return to the clearing. Fear surged through me, I couldn't let myself be caught. Just as I thought I might reach safety, another figure appeared, emerging from the shadows right in front of me. I skidded to a halt, breathless. There was nowhere to go. My heart raced as it stepped closer, the dim light revealing its twisted features. It wasn't just hungry, it seemed almost curious. That's when I remembered the words, "Come closer." The figure extended a long, skeletal hand, beckoning me. A shiver trailed down my spine as my mind raced. What did they want with me? I couldn't move. I felt trapped in an unsettling standoff. Then, the ground beneath me trembled slightly, and I noticed a faint glow coming from beneath the leaves at my feet. I knelt instinctively, unearthing a small, jagged stone that radiated warmth. What was this? The glow pulsed in my palm, and for a brief moment, I wondered if it was a weapon or a shield. The figures hesitated, their attention shifting to the light. But I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever power this stone held, it was fleeting. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed, the figures recoiling slightly as if the light scared them. I took a deep breath, the weight of my fear clashing with the urgent need to act. I had to know if this was my way out. Then everything went dark. I stumbled through the void, my heart racing in that suffocating silence. I felt the stone slip from my grip, its warmth fading away as it clattered to the ground. Panic surged through me. I needed that light. I groped around in the dark, my fingers brushing against damp earth and tangled roots. Was I still being pursued? Every instinct screamed at me to get up and run, but the dark felt like a heavy blanket, wrapping around me, keeping me still. I strained to hear any sound, the echoes of whispers, chilling chants, anything that might hint at my pursuers. I held my breath, waiting. A moment passed, maybe two, before I noticed a faint glimmer ahead. Cautiously, I crawled toward it. As I moved, feelings of dread washed over me. It felt like the shadows were closing in, waiting for me to make a wrong turn. My fingers brushed against the damp, cool ground until I finally felt a surface. The glimmer wasn't just an illusion. It was a reflection of light, bouncing off something in the darkness. I pushed myself up to my knees, squinting at the shimmering object lying before me. It was another stone, but larger, nestled among the roots of an ancient tree. This one pulsed with a milky glow, like the moon reflected in still water. Something about it felt different, safer, even. As I reached for it, I was jolted by a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye. My breath hitched as I saw a figure emerge, slowly stepping into the periphery of the glimmer. I froze, half in shadow, half in light. This one looked less monstrous, its form less twisted, though I could barely make out its face. "Please," it whispered, the voice low and raspy, almost human. "Help me." I hesitated, studying its eyes. They were deep and dark, like the figure at the altar, but filled with a pleading light. My instinct screamed caution, yet there was something about its presence that seemed less threatening. It gestured toward the glowing stone. "You must take it." A surge of uncertainty enveloped me. "What are you? What do you want?" "It will guide you," it replied, desperation lacing each word. "But you must trust it. You must trust yourself." Before I could respond, a resounding hiss erupted from beyond the shadows. I turned to see the edges of darkness writhing, as if disturbed by the presence of the light. The chaotic whispers grew louder, weaving a dangerous melody that urged against my resolve. I glanced back at the figure. Its expression bore the weight of shared fear, and in that moment, I recognized the connection. This creature, whatever it was in a similar struggle. I couldn't leave it behind. I lunged for the glowing stone, grasping it firmly. The light intensified, illuminating the path behind me and casting away some of the surrounding shadows. The figure recoiled, shielding its own eyes. I couldn't tell if it was grateful or instead afraid of the light's power. "Come on!" I shouted, feeling a new sense of urgency. In that instant, I knew I needed to escape, but I also had to free whoever this was from their anguish. As I turned back toward the darkness, the ground shook beneath me again, and I sensed something terrible closing in. My heart raced as I braced myself for whatever was about to happen next. Then, from the depth of the shadows, I heard a voice, a low roar resonating through the clearing. "You cannot leave with it." In that moment, I realized we weren't just fighting for freedom. We were battling against something far more relentless, and I had to find a way to outsmart it before it was too late. The roar echoed like thunder, reverberating through the clearing, shaking the very ground beneath my feet. My heart raced as fear coursed through me. I couldn't let whatever was lurking in the dark overpower me now. I looked back at the figure. Its eyes widened in horror, and for a moment, we were locked in a shared understanding this fight was bigger than both of us. "Stay close," I shouted, and with the glowing stone clutched tight, I dashed toward the nearest patch of light. The beam illuminated the twisted roots of the trees, creating a rocky path. But the darkness was relentless, it slithered, expanding behind me, closing in like a predator. The whispers grew louder, morphing into a cacophony of distorted voices, urging me to turn back. My mind raced. I had to focus on escaping, yet the creature beside me seemed almost in tune with the whispers. I could see its silhouette flicker, shifting as if it might just dissolve into the encroaching shadows. "You have to let the light guide you," it yelled, its voice breaking through the din. "Ignore them." I nodded, forcing myself to keep moving forward. But a shadow lunged at us from the side, and instinctively, I raised the glowing stone in defense. The light spilled forth, momentarily revealing our assailant, a figure engulfed in writhing shadows, its form twisted and grotesque. It screamed, a high-pitched wail that sent chills racing down my spine. "Run!" I urged, and we sprinted past it, dodging trees and roots. The path wound through the darkness, every step feeling heavier than the last as I fought against the oppressive fear weighing down my chest. Faint glimmers of light seemed to flicker ahead. Maybe there was hope, some exit to this nightmare. But I also sensed the shadows deepening behind us, a tangible force chasing us relentlessly. "Is it always like this?" I shouted to the figure beside me. "Forever pursued?" "Yes," it replied, urgency rushing its words. "But there is a way. We must reach the gate of light." "Where is it?" I asked, gasping for breath. "Just ahead. Trust the stone," it urged, pointing toward the distant glow. I could feel the heat radiating from it, a stark contrast to the cold dread creeping at my back. With renewed determination, I pressed on, feeling the stone pulse in time with my heartbeat. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath us, a deep hollow opened wide, threatening to swallow anything in its grasp. I stumbled, managing to catch myself just in time, but the figure my companion lost its footing and fell backward toward the void. "No!" I cried out, reaching for it. Its hand slipped through my fingers as it tumbled into the darkness. "Stay strong," it shouted, just before vanishing completely. My heart sank, yet I couldn't stop. I turned toward the light, pressing forward with everything I had left. As I neared the glow, I felt a different presence gathering behind me, something larger, angrier, hungrily chasing the fading light. That's when I saw it, a massive arch, shimmering with ethereal energy, the gate of light. It beckoned me, promising safety, but could it save me from the shadows looming close? I stumbled toward it, hope and fear battling for dominance. I had to make it through. I had to escape whatever hunted me. But just as I grasped the archway, the voice came again, louder this time. "You cannot escape." And then everything went dark. I stumbled, engulfed in a thick shroud of darkness. Heart racing, I felt around, trying to steady myself as reality twisted in and out of focus. The pulse of the glowing stone still echoed in my hand, a fragile beacon in this void. Then something shifted beside me, a figure, no longer a threat, but not entirely welcoming either. The faint outlines of its twisted features gradually came into view, lit by the remaining light of the stone. It had returned, and as I squinted into the dark, I saw the desperation on its face. "You must leave," it urged, reaching out toward me. "Now." "Leave? What about you?" I stammered, battling the sense of dread that clung to me. "I can't just abandon you here. It's not safe for you. Trust the light, it will protect you." The figure's voice cracked, urgency etching deeper into its words. "The shadows want you, don't let them take you." Before I could process the gravity of its warning, I felt a tremor beneath my feet. The ground quaked, and the shadows seemed to pulse, stretching and swirling like a living entity plotting my demise. I closed my eyes, focusing completely on the radiant energy of the stone. With a deep breath, I drew a sharp line in my mind. This was not a battle I could afford to lose. The emotional turmoil surged within me as memories flashed through my mind, the figure at the altar, the whispers, the children's warning. It all collapsed together, and though I was terrified, an understanding crystallized in my heart. I had no choice. I couldn't let fear guide me. With the stone lit in my palm, I took a step toward the distant arch, my only hope. The moment I did, the shadows recoiled like they were burned, hissing in outrage. "Don't look back," the figure shouted. I didn't need to. Instead, I focused on the glimmering gate. I ran, feeling the tendrils of darkness reaching toward me, piercing the air with a palpable hunger. Each thumping heartbeat urged me forward, drowning out my terror. The gate loomed closer, an ethereal glow growing brighter. "Trust it. Trust yourself," echoed in my mind. I reached forth, ready to leap through, when a bristling force slammed into me from behind. It was palpable and overwhelming, as if 100 hands clawed at the edges of my being. I was almost through when I felt a cold grip on my ankle. My heart seized, but the warmth of the stone surged brighter in response. "No!" I screamed, channeling every shard of courage within me. I kicked back against the darkness, recalling the haunting whispers around the altar. With one last, desperate surge, I flung myself into the gate. Then, silence. I blinked, an intensity of light flooding my vision, wrapped in an embrace of astonishing warmth. I felt weightless, as if I were dissolving into the very air itself. The feeling stretched across time and space, a brief eternity. Suddenly, the overwhelming fears and shadows unraveled. I was back in the woods. It must have been dawn, pale light filtering through the trees. I stumbled to my feet, disoriented. Everything felt too quiet, too still. The oppressive weight of the darkness had lifted, but a residual chill remained, gnawing at my core. I looked around, half expecting to see the figures lurking behind the trees, the woodwalker waiting to reclaim its prey. Yet, the forest felt strangely alive, singing with a new buzz, but still, every rustle made me tense. My phone buzzed again, jolting me from the lingering unease. I glanced at the screen. No alerts, no warnings. Just an ordinary notification. I turned back toward the road, aware that I needed to leave this place behind, to escape its hold. I walked toward my car, my heart still rattling though I could no longer feel the shadows. I glanced back toward the trees one last time, half expecting to see the figures amongst the branches, the child, the pleading figure I helped, or the woodwalker itself. Had I truly escaped? But only stillness met my gaze, only the quiet sigh of the Appalachian breeze. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the unsettling questions that lingered. Was the woodwalker still watching? Had I truly freed someone, or was it all a trick? And what about the dangerous individual noted in the alert? I'd never know. I moved to a different city a week later. But sometimes, when I close my eyes at night, I hear a distant whisper. Mark, it reminds me that the shadows of the Appalachian Mountains are never entirely gone. They linger beyond the trees, waiting, ready to unfurl their stories when the night feels ripe. I can't shake the feeling that they aren't finished with me yet.